Welcome to Blind Level Tech. I'm Jonathan Price.
I'm Evan Starnes.
And together, we're bringing you news, tech, and information about blind technologies.
Being blind doesn't mean you have to stop living.
We're going to show you just how possible it is to live the life you want. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Sorry, that was a bit of an interesting intro. Oh, man.
You doing okay? You get on here okay?
Oh, yeah. I just needed coffee first.
Are you more of a light roast, dark roast, or high cream, high sugar? What's your go-to coffee?
My go-to coffee is a it's a light roast with cream and I don't do sugar anymore, but I usually try and stick to cream. Sometimes I like a dark roast.
So my parents just went to Hawaii, and they brought back this. They had these beans roasted. It's Kona coffee. I guess you can get it on Amazon from them, but they had this custom bag roasted.
Oh,
it's really good. I kind of love me that Hawaiian coffee. It's super good. So they do a couple of different roasts, and so they went through like the whole coffee roasting process with them and showed them all the different ways to roast coffee. And
that's cool. And
the fact that they told them that espresso was actually a really highly roasted coffee, and it actually has less caffeine per bean than a light roasted coffee. So I was like, okay, interesting. I was like, I didn't know that. I would have assumed that espresso was the speed juice,
This whole time I've been assuming that. That's honestly kind of an eye opener, but also kind of frustrating because that means that my mornings spent toiling away at the espresso machine were all for not entirely nothing, but
yeah.
Mark,
have you tried poop coffee?
Poop coffee.
Poop coffee. So it's called Kopi Luwak, and it's actually digested by animals and then excreted. There's a little cat that eats the green beans, and then after it poops it out, they're not actually cats, but they look like cats. Huh. And it's some of the most expensive coffee you can buy.
I don't know. I'd be drinking that, and then I'd be like, I'm drinking poop. I'm legit.
I don't know how I could possibly stomach that. I don't even. Yeah. I will tell you, the most interesting coffee that I have had was when I went to Africa, and they actually brew their coffee with goat's milk instead of water, and it creates such this amazing creamy texture that you don't get with a normal brew from just water coffee. Yeah. But it was amazing. Anyway, I digress.
That's awesome. Well, next time I'm in Boulder, I'm going to bring you some poop coffee.
Oh, okay. Please do.
I'm game.
So
I'll at least tell you, try it, and we'll.
Hey, we might even try it live on BLT.
We'll get the.
That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Yeah.
Mark, welcome to Blind Level Tech. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, if you guys don't know what you're listening to and why you just jumped on in the middle of a conversation, is because this is Blind Level Tech. Jonathan Price with Evan Starnes, and our guest today, Mark Johnson from Michigan Labs. And so I came across Michigan Labs, and we're just going to jump right into it because there's a lot of tech that we're going to get into because we're kind of tech nerds and we really enjoy this. But we actually got in touch with you through James
Bloomfield at Hearsee.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Hearsee. And so tell me exactly how that happened. How did you guys get together? And I'm just going to let you go from there.
Yeah, so Hearsee is an amazing organization we connected with a little over a year ago, and they were working on some technology to help give blind users the freedom to travel. And we heard about it, and they're like, hey, you're app developers, and we need app developers. And We just have fallen in love with the product and been able to work on it over the last year or so. And James is a good friend, and he's out in St. George, Utah. And so we've been out to Salt Lake a little bit and done some, testing out there and gotten to meet a bunch of amazing people. And so it's been super cool to work with Hearsee.
Very cool. Yeah, it was interesting to have him on because the technology in that particular cane is such that it's highly nuanced. And when he partnered with you guys and doing some research about, Michigan Labs and what you guys do, it was really cool to me, the family aspect that you guys bring to, I guess, technology development and how you work with companies. Can you give us some insight into Michigan Labs and what you guys do and how you started?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the starting story because it's a little bit of starting a business by accident. And my wife was a runner and she wanted to listen to the radio on her iPhone. This is like 2008. So the iPhone had just come out and she wanted to be able to hear the radio. And so she was like, honey, build me an app. And I didn't know how to build apps. And so she just added it to my honey-do list of like, do the dishes and, do the laundry, whatever, and then build an app. And so I went to the Barnes & Noble here in Grand Rapids and was able to buy the Dummies book on iPhone programming. And I was, the biggest dummy I still am today when it comes to iPhone programming, but was able to put together a radio app for her and donate it to a local radio station. Wow. And Josh and I were really good friends, and he was a professional developer at GE and, doing code there. And so he's like, hey, I'll build the Android version. It took him one day.
No way.
So it had taken me 6 months. It took him one day to build it. And we launched it in the App Store, and we had 100,000 weekly listeners. And our one condition to the station was don't put our names on it because we don't want to get any bug reports or things like that. And that was the one condition they didn't listen to. And so they put our names and personal cell phones in there.
Oh, no.
And, we started getting calls from all over the place of people that wanted apps for their businesses. That's how it started.
So what does Michigan Labs do now?
Yeah, so we do custom software. So a lot of times a business will come to us and they've got some sort of unique problem. And so it's usually around increasing revenue and decreasing cost, but it's it's really innovative stuff that we get to do. Very disruptive technology. So oftentimes we're kind of on the bleeding edge of, the latest and greatest stuff that really won't be released to the public for several years. And so we work mainly with Fortune 500 companies, but also really high growth startups and just try and solve problems with software.
Yeah, it's my turn now. So I noticed, Mark, that there was a high emphasis with building relationships, which I really liked. And I found that, to be, I don't know how else to describe it actually, but I actually kind of want to start learning more. Since we've talked about, the fact that you've developed an app. And by the way, I should say that was like 2008. That was like right at the beginning of the App Store. So that's really cool. Like you were one of the first pioneers to actually make, probably one of the, that's 2008. So that would I think that even predates like some streaming services. So the fact that you pioneered that app is incredibly cool. Something that stood out to me is, and it even kind of sounded familiar to like my strategy, but you taught yourself coding, to my knowledge, at 11 years old. And I'd really like to know what your first experiences with coding were like. What language did you start with? Like, when did that all start out? And like, what was your very, very, very first glimpse into the realm of coding like?
Yeah, so we got a computer for Christmas, and I remember opening it up, and none of my other family members are really that excited about it, but I was the first one to really dive into it. And I was pretty young. So I think, I don't know, let's say I'm 10 years old and was able to, kind of download America Online and start to get the internet going. And then one of the first, you've got mail, right?
Yep.
And so we were big into snowboarding and wakeboarding and just kind of all these different sports that involved boards. And so we thought, hey, let's launch a website for advice, for snowboarding and wakeboarding. And my brother was a really good skier. So I've got a younger brother and an older sister, and Nate is his name. He's an incredible skier, and can do anything on the water or on the snow that, most people just can't even fathom. And so he's like, hey, we'll take some pictures and then, we could create a little website. And so we called it boardworld.com. And we had that registered domain name. And we just wrote articles and had pictures of us, mostly of him, kind of doing different jumps and different grabs and things like that. And it was really content based and really kind of a rugged, website, just a bunch of kids, kind of talking about that. But it got a lot of attention. And back in the day, they had this site called about.com where you could, submit articles, and they wanted to have it be like the one-stop shop for advice. And so they were like, hey, can we, subscribe to your articles or buy your articles? And my brother and I were like, well, we need to talk to our parents. And they're like, what? Like, you're just kids? Like, we thought you were like a professional, organization or something like that. So, but I still never know what we sold those articles for, but we did end up selling the domain. And they were able to take it over.
Wow. Yeah, I wish you'd known. That would have been kind of cool. I guess that'd be a compliment if they thought you guys were like professional adults. And this is the this is the old internet too. That's the cool part. This is like the pre-mainstream internet. So the fact that you guys were able to pull that off and get all the attention you got, and then people were like, "Hey, we like what you're doing. Can we, buy this up and keep it going?" And that's
it was fun. It was HTML and CSS though, is kind of what we learned, and it was just running with Front Page or Dreamweaver. And, it's, I'm not a programmer, but back then I was able to, again, read the dummies books and kind of learn how to do it. And so, just kind of problem solving and trying to take it one step at a time.
Right.
And it was really fun.
That is really fun. And it's like, it also proves a point that you don't technically have to be a programmer to program. I'm not a musician, but I make music, for instance. But wow, and HTML and CSS are still perfectly relevant. So I almost wonder what has become of sites like about.com. And I mean, they've kind of gotten taken over by YouTube now. But
I think people, nowadays they just, you go to the internet to learn, and you try and go with curiosity, and exactly. You can find anything you want out. But I'm sure that they're probably spun up by something else now.
Absolutely,
man. That's a lot of really amazing information about, obviously, Michigan Labs and what you're doing. I loved in your bio that you're a dad of 4 daughters. So first of all, bless you for that. And all the princess dress up stuff. And I have a daughter. I'm very familiar with all that stuff, the tea parties and all that. And
playing princess and
family. I appreciate the family aspect of that. When James came to you with the idea of this cane, what was your first thought, and how did that relationship start?
Yeah, so he was a connection that we got, and I remember on our first call, just thinking, wow, this could really change the world, and the frustration, of just kind of knowing the blind friends that I had in college. And the, frustration they had with travel and things like that. So I was like, this could be truly a world changing idea. And really the first thought I had was around cost, is just how much better it was to use RFID technology versus like Bluetooth and powered, devices, because you could put a 7-cent sticker on something and that would allow you to provide navigation for these users without having a powered device. So that was pretty exciting.
Okay. Yeah, that is really exciting. I'm glad to see that the Bluetooth, the infamous Bluetooth beacons are kind of getting phased out with, and I never would have thought of RFID. I've seen a lot of new technologies, around indoor navigation that use things like LiDAR and, augmented reality and stuff like that, but not RFID. And I think that actually is that might be a more effective solution, especially with the way it sounds like it's going to be implemented.
Yeah. And just kudos to Hearsee for all the amazing work that they're doing for the users. And, we were using RFID technology, I think back to like 2014 on recycling carts. And there was a client that came to us and they're like, hey, rather than having all these trash pickup people, type in the address that they're at, could we just put an RFID tag on a trash cart and save them a lot of time typing it in?
Exactly.
And so we were able to build that technology for them where you could just, walk up and, touch your tag or scan your tag and then allow you to get all the data that you needed for that residence. So I think it really applies well, and this is really just the beginning.
Exactly, because there's going to be the whole stage of implementing it everywhere, and making it more widespread and available, and then getting the canes out to people. There's that, it's going to be definitely a stages thing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, we're the first in Michigan right now to have a Hearsee enabled office, and so right now, if you come to our office and you grab a cane, you can walk through our office. We just had someone tour last week, and it's an amazing, technology. You can tell it where you want it to go, and it'll give you, turn-by-turn directions, and you can make it very specific for how much feedback you want. And if you want it to be, giving you, turn, 90 degrees this way, or if you just want it to, take a slight right or take a right. And so it's really going to be developed in a conversational way, learning from the blind community of, all right, what do you want? What don't you want? Everett Bacon, just kudos to Everett and all the work that he's put into Hearsee, and
yes, big time,
really making this the voice of the user. So super exciting to be a part of that.
Kudos to you also for sourcing from the blind community rather than just developing a product, and based on what you think people need. That is, kudos to you guys. That is amazing. What is it gonna be like to get more Hearsee enabled buildings around at least the U.S. first? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, well, I think the ADA. So yesterday, there was a big announcement that the ADA put out about navigation, and that is going to be a really big, important area for companies like Hearsee and organizations like Hearsee. Hearsee is a nonprofit, and so they're going to be able to, not that the government's going to mandate everything and everyone's going to have it, but I think they'll be encouraged to provide this technology to, build businesses and retailers and, putting it everywhere, especially if it's just an RFID tag. But really for us, it's building out the infrastructure, building out the ability to have that cloud-enabled solution, a web-based solution. You can upload a map of your location. You can put some tags on it, and then it's self-service. So you don't need, once you're certified, you don't really need a lot of, feedback from Hearsee. You can just run with it, and you can build out your office or your retail location, your airport, your hospital, and have these tags really discreetly placed in your facility. So it's super exciting. It's just the beginning. And I think it's going to be amazing. We're going to, in a few years, we're going to have it everywhere, and it'll be really common to be able to travel with it.
That's what I'm hoping to see. That actually did answer my question of what it looks like to implement it, because I have seen, with Bluetooth beacons or even some of the LiDAR-based apps out there, you have to have somebody with the company or that can provide data to the company. Basically somebody special has to go in with their device and kind of map out your place, or if they're using beacons, they have to program each and every beacon, and that's just it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time and money, and a lot of I've never seen a business with Bluetooth beacons because nobody's willing to do that. But yeah, with these little tags, nobody's really going to see them except the cane. And it sounds like, I wonder what I'm curious just from a technological perspective of what it's like to program those, but perhaps that's a rabbit hole.
Well, I think you want to make it user-based. And so you want to, like we said, listen to the blind community, what is important to how it needs to be used. We first did the Michigan convention with the blind users. I was amazed, just how they even held their phone and the ability to kind of see, the assistive, mode that they had on the phone, and just how fast everyone is and how incredibly talented they are at navigating the device. And so we had to put buttons in places we didn't think, and to make sure it was enabled for accessibility. And, programming it is, really starting with the end in mind, starting with the user in mind. What do they need to do? And then working back to the technology and the back end systems and, programming all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's a part creativity, part science. I mean, there's so much behind, programming, as you know, Evan, and your programming stuff that you do. It's a great blend of creativity and science.
Exactly. I didn't realize that was that was your first exposure to voiceover. It's definitely it'll throw you off if you hear it for the first time. I know Jonathan can agree with me on that for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't catch up to
that. I did have a thought that kind of just popped into my head. Let's just say I owned a business and I was a blind business owner and I wanted to make my place Hearsee enabled. Would that also be accessible too?
Yeah, that's the whole idea, is to, right now we have the Utah, Center for the Blind enabled.
Right.
Everett Bacon was able to help get that part of there. But, it was just someone that raised their hand and said, hey, I want this. And, putting those tags in and installing the system. And, now that's the first one in Utah. So we probably need some in Colorado too.
We really do. It's really
just, yeah. And it's a pretty great, tool to be able to set up, and then, really having the canes available.
Yeah.
So we're looking at, just all the different applications and places it could be. But yeah, you just raise your hand and say, hey, I want, Hearsee. And I'm sure they're going to start a wait list and start to be able to deploy these, because, we've been setting up for conventions, and those, take a day to install and then a day to take down, and then, for a 2-day convention. So it's a bit more temporary tags, but for permanent, placement, I think it'll take a little bit longer than that. But once you get up and running, it's set.
Mark, thank you for bringing the duration up. I was actually a little curious about how long it would take to install an entire Hearsee system. My original reasoning for that question is you'd originally mentioned that business owners would basically upload a map of what their business looked like. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of just like, how's that going to look? But yeah, thank you for bringing that point up too. It only takes a day to install a Hearsee system, as opposed to, I don't know how long it would take to install a Bluetooth beacon system, at least, a week.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the goal is to really, make it a short time frame. Obviously, there's the permanence of painting over the tags or having the tags, not be
tampered with,
visible. Yeah, or tampered with, and so that would take some additional, work. But we have a 3-story office here in Grand Rapids. It's about 16,000 square feet, and it's able to be configured. And if we change a room name, you can just change. We'll be able to change it in the system, and it's just going to be amazing to have this type of technology that people can come in and check out.
Absolutely. I do want to know more about this cane, and if this has been covered in a previous episode, that just let me know. But I'm curious too. You'd mentioned that it has speech feedback. It'll tell you, make a right turn or turn 90 degrees left or whatever. Does it also have any haptic feedback?
Yes. Yeah, there's haptic feedback in the cane.
Oh, great.
Again, trying to make it discrete to where you're able to use it. And so, for power on and for the ability to, eventually deploy, different controls. But right now it can be completely discrete if you have your AirPod in, and you've got the iOS app running, and you can listen to the navigation right in your ear. Eventually there'll be, a lot more capability around as we listen to the blind community and they say, hey, this is what I want it to do, 2 haptic beeps for left and, 1 for right or whatever. And, kind of that sensation, it'll all be possible because of the navigation and the power is in the system that Hearsee has developed. And super excited to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And coming from somebody who has never held a cane, one of these canes before, or seen one, I have a ton of questions, but that'll probably, I imagine, be answered later. I'm personally curious too if the cane, how dependent on the app the device is itself. If I'm navigating with my Hearsee cane and then, oh no, my phone just died, what would end up happening?
Yeah, the battery life is pretty good on the cane.
Oh, good.
So I don't know if it's 10 or 12 hours, but it should be as long as your phone. And so they, there's going to be new products that can come out and enable it. One of the things that we're really trying to do, and so I'm going to speak to all the listeners, if you know anyone at Google Maps or Apple Maps, we're trying to get good connections in there. And we've already been speaking with some higher ups at certain organizations, but we want to really embed it into that, existing navigation that you're using, and have some really clean handoffs between the digital world and the physical world. And so if someone's like, oh, yeah, I know Dan at Google Maps, we'd love to get in touch with them at Michigan Labs and for Hearsee. And so, just encouraging people, if they know anybody, we'd be happy to connect.
That would be incredible. Have you guys also considered like the OpenStreetMap project?
Yeah, we looked into that. I don't know if you could speak a little more about it.
Yeah, basically it's just an open sourced mapping project where essentially instead, like, as opposed to Google Maps where they have professionals with, the weird looking Google cars that drive around and map, it's basically all crowdsourced. It's a crowdsourced mapping system. So, essentially if new businesses come out, people basically go around and kind of map those in OpenStreetMap, and they have an app. It's actually really good for a lot of GPS apps, specifically tailored, for navigating. I guess a lot of navigation apps for the blind and visually impaired use it actually, and it's good for indoor maps. It's also really good for telling you if a place is accessible or not, and you can actually put that information in there as well. But the coverage, at least here in the Denver metro area, is really good. So that might be another really good source as far as integration with maps, external maps.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I was just pulling that up. Yeah, it looks like they've got XML integrations and the ability to connect into that. So it's like a Wikipedia,
right?
It's like anyone can contribute, and that's really what you want. Is you want some ability to, have another source as well as these other sources like Apple and Google.
Yeah, absolutely.
That can just make the navigation experience better.
Absolutely. Let's talk back. Let's go back to the cane real quick. I imagine a lot of people would like to know how exactly you go about charging this cane up.
Yeah. So just like you charge your phone, and you just plug it right into the USB-C charger, and you're on your way.
Oh, it's USB-C. So that's awesome. I love standard connections. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to really have too custom of a connection because of the, traveling and, all the ways that the cane will be used.
How many?
And
go
ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm rapid fire style questions at you, but how many controls are on the cane itself?
So if you are familiar with an iPhone,
yes,
it's going to be a similar number in terms of the number of touch points that there are. And so, giving you not a ton of buttons. I mean, you remember when it was like BlackBerry, and there was a Treo and all these other devices,
soft keys and programmable buttons and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and users don't want that. They want the ability to have something very clean and very user focused that is powered by just really a couple little controls. And so your power is going to be in the integration with the app, and being able to navigate with your voice, and being able to navigate with the haptic feedback and the audio that's coming out of the application.
Absolutely.
And so, but yeah, think of the controls in terms of the end count, the number of buttons on there is really similar to an iPhone.
Yeah. So about 3, because modern iPhones, 3 buttons: volume, mute switch, power, or volume rocker. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys took that approach. I'm actually going to go ahead and hand it back to Jonathan here and wrap up this episode.
I'm just going to let you just keep on going, man. We could have been going for like 6 weeks at this rate.
That's the thing, though. That's why I'm like, okay, we got to stop, because like this crazy train here is not going any slower. It's just speeding up. It's like it's a runaway train. That's what it is.
Well, the only question that I have left is really, I know when James was on, he was talking about production, I think being at the closer to the end of this year and being able to launch that. Is that still on track, or what's the next steps for both Michigan Labs and Hearsee?
Yeah, really the goal is all systems go. We've been collecting feedback along the way and making tweaks around, how the application can work. And right now we're working on really that web portion where a business owner can upload a map of their business and then start tagging. And so, later this year and early into next year, expect more information about Hearsee to come out, and just super excited to be a part of this project and be able to see it thrive.
So if there's a business who wants to have their business mapped, do they reach you, or do they contact Hearsee, or where can we go and direct people?
Yeah, I would definitely connect with hearseemobility.org, and that's going to be the best way to get signed up for the list and be able to be considered as beta programs roll out.
Perfect. Okay. So I know I said that was my last question, but this is actually my last question. I appreciate you being on with us. So BLT, usually when people think of it, they hear bacon, lettuce, tomato, not blind level check. So in light of that, what's your favorite sandwich?
Okay, so I'm going to go with, it's called the Mountie, and it's from Mud Penny, which is a restaurant here. It does have bacon, does have lettuce, does have tomato, but it also has sweet potato.
Oh.
And it's on like a flat bread. It's incredible.
Very cool. And what's it called? The Mountie?
It's called the Mountie.
The Mountie.
Oh, Canadian. Okay, like Mountie.
Mountie. Okay.
Yeah, perfect for Colorado.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We're keeping that question around. Any future guests, be prepared to answer what your favorite sandwich is. And if you don't have one, that's good. That's going to be a thing now.
All right. Well, it was so much fun having you on the show, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing, not only for the blind community, but for Hearsee. And if you guys want more information about Mark and his amazing company, Michigan Labs, head over to michiganlabs.com. And if you need some software out there, look them up, and I'm sure they'll be able to help you get all that figured out. So for the entire AINC family, for Evan Starnes, my co-host, have a great week. Don't forget to plug in your devices. We'll see you later.